The Curt Cignetti Way. Why Curt Cignetti is dominating college football and what is his story, part one. Welcome to another episode of the Bamateur Hour. Why is this man important? Why do we care? Why is Bama fans do we care? He has deep ties to Alabama. He has deep ties to Saban. He is a Sabanite, but guess what? He is also born and bred and a legacy of Bear Bryant and also a legacy of Bowden. Bobby Bowden, who is also a Bear Bryant disciple. So Alabama helped create this guy. He's dominating college football. And quite honestly, Alabama, you need to pay attention. You need to learn your lessons from what Cignetti's doing and why he is now the best coach in college football. I had my eyes open and I did a deep dive. And here is what I've learned. We're going to go through this. We're going to talk about it. Why is this guy all that, and why has Indiana gone from the worst college football program in D1 Power 4 football to on the verge of winning a national championship, dominating football in 2 short years? It is crazy. The late bloomer. He is the late bloomer who is blossoming in Bloomington and is now and currently the best college football coach, bar none. Best coach. He has taken the mantle from Kirby Smart, who took it from Nick Saban. Alabama has direct ties to Cignetti, and Cignetti has direct ties to Alabama, not just to Saban, but to Bear Bryant and to Bobby Bowden, and we're going to talk more about that. Cignetti learned from the 2 Alabama legends, and Bobby Bowden is a self-described Bear Bryant disciple. Let's show all the ties. First off, is he a Saban clone? No. Is he similar to Saban? Yes. And did he learn tons of Saban and absorb the lessons he learned from Saban and put it into his process that I call the Cignetti way? Absolutely. Curt's father, Frank Cignetti, is he a clone of his father? No, but has to have lots of his father in him. And his father, longtime successful Hall of Fame football coach in the college level. And he's followed in his footsteps, and he's a lifer too. So clearly he has learned a lot and taken a lot from his father. And we'll talk about that and show that as well. Cignetti is his own man. He's taken his own path to get where he is now. It is not the typical take an OC/DC job at a high-level college program that wins and then get hired and then take over another program. He did it on a circuitous route. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about how he is his own man. He's created his own way, but he certainly learned the lessons from the Bear, from Bobby Bowden, from his dad, and from Nick Saban, and put it into his process, put his own spin on it, and here we are. Dominant college football playoff run, first off, for Indiana. They opened it. They were the only bye team to win. They were prepared. They didn't let that layoff make them rusty. They came out and rolled Alabama 38-3. I watched that in horror and amazement as they just beat up Alabama. Got a lot of grief from all these Indiana fans that I've interacted with. They love razzing me. They love talking smack. They love that we got destroyed. But you know what, Alabama? We created this monster. We created this genius, or helped create him. He gets to take credit for learning the lessons and becoming the football savant, the great coach that he is. And by the way, I'm on Team Klatt. I'm not on Team David Pollock. I'm on Team Klatt, that Curt Cignetti is now the best college football coach out there. I'm going to put that out there. Love David Pollock. Love what he has to say, but I'm on Cignetti. My eyes have been open. I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unsee the way he's handled things, the way he coaches, and I'm on that side of the fence. Anyway, watching amazement as well as IU carved up that Big Ten football power Oregon and destroyed them 56-22 as well. And they're going to beat Miami. They're going to win Indiana's first national championship. Curt Cignetti's going to get his first national championship. And then the question is he on to the NFL? There's a bunch of coach opening. There's a bunch of openings in the NFL. And apparently news is just breaking that Pittsburgh is going to go after him and go hard to try to hire him. He's from Pittsburgh. Would he go back? Would he go back there and coach in the NFL, or is he happy in Indiana, wants to stay there and just ride out his career and build Indiana into a power and see if he can leave a legacy at Indiana like Nick Saban has left at Alabama. What's he going to do? It's going to be fascinating to watch, but just note that we've got that hanging in the air. Hope it doesn't distract Indiana. Cignetti shouldn't let it. We'll see what happens. Big game Monday night. So I dug in. I did a deep dive into who Curt Cignetti is. And here are the things that I learned. This is part one of 2 parts. So let me just jump in here. He's the best coach in college football. I said, if I had a son who was gifted enough to play college football, I'd want him to play for Cignetti. Love the way he coaches. Love the way he does things. I think he does it the right way. And I think he's the best. And I love the way he develops players. I think he asks a lot of them. They have to play hard, but I like the way just he approaches everything. Cignetti develops players. He seems to get the most out of them. They play the game the right way. They play tough. They play fair and likable if you're willing. And I think he's tough, fair, and likable if you're willing to do the work. All about the fundamentals, accountability, and playing the right way. He touches all the positions. He's in touch with all the players, and he holds them, and he's on top of the fundamentals of the game at every position, and he holds all of the players accountable to do everything the right way from footwork standpoint, from an execution standpoint, and from a sportsmanship standpoint. Play hard, play fast, play physical, play with proper technique, do your job, but don't commit penalties. That is what he is about. I noticed the IU players play hard, fast, and physical between the lines. They play with proper technique and precision. They don't commit penalties, or very, very few. One of the least penalized teams in D1. They are supremely disciplined. They avoid those 15-yard penalties. When pushing players out of bounds, they don't commit personal fouls. They don't shove players in the back, as I noticed other players. As a matter of fact, in the Alabama game, one of the things that really opened my eyes and impressed me was the fact that one of the Indiana players was running an Alabama guy out of bounds. And I usually expect to see a shove in the back, give him the business, late hit. And he grabbed the player and actually held him up so he wasn't hurt. I mean, that sportsmanship meant the world to me, because Indiana was hitting Alabama, killing them, putting it to us, doing everything in a physical, violent manner until the whistle blew and between the lines. But they weren't doing the extracurricular stuff out of bounds. They weren't doing the 15-yard penalties. They weren't getting the targeting. It was impressive. They play the game the right way. And the example was that I just mentioned in Indiana, getting steamrolled, and yet they weren't launching themselves. They weren't targeting. Indiana standard, that's it. They play between the lines until the whistle. They play with physicality, and it shows in the way they tackle. Let's talk about their tackling. They tackle the right way. They wrap up. They maintain proper leverage, and they stay and tackle the football. They don't leave their feet. They don't launch themselves. They don't target. They don't try to hit a player as hard as they can without wrapping up. I can't stand that when I see a guy slam into a guy and just hit him violently, but they don't wrap him up and get him to the ground. The player bounces off, doesn't go to the ground, and ends up making a big play. You don't see that with Indiana players. Coach Cignetti teaches them how to tackle properly, and they do it every time, wrapping up and getting them to the ground. They tackle almost perfectly every time. Yeah, there's some missed tackles. There's incredible athletes out there. Some guys are just too good and can put moves on them, but it's not because they don't have the technique. It's not because they're not in proper position. Sometimes special players make special plays. Also, Indiana, they avoid the 15-yard penalties on defense. They don't commit targeting, face masks. They don't late hit. They don't give players the business. They don't shove them as they go out of bounds or after they go out of bounds and get those 15-yard penalties. And they tackle well time and time again. Either you coach it or you allow it. And Cignetti doesn't coach it. He doesn't allow it. His players play the right way. And his staff, they don't coach it and they don't allow it. I mean, hats off. It's amazing. Cignetti's players do their jobs. They set the edge with proper technique and alignment. On offense, they play with precision and proper technique. They play like an well-oiled machine. On defense, they fill the gaps. They hardly ever jump off sides, if ever. I haven't ever seen them do it on offense. And by the way, Curt Cignetti is an offensive guy. He was an offensive position coach throughout his career until he became a head coach. He's an offensive guy. They block effectively. They don't miss assignments, or almost never. Each player does his job. They don't try to do more than they should. They do their job and trust their teammates to do their job. They run the RPO system, which is timing, reading your keys, executing, and they do it so well. Mendoza does it so well. It's impressive. And I want to bring this point up. And this is an example. Cignetti would never put up with this. In the Miami-Ohio State game, on the pick six play by Miami, which was a key play that led to Ohio State losing to Miami, Scott, the defensive cornerback, jumps the route, grabs the pass, pick six, takes to the house, touchdown. But the reason he was able to do that is Ohio State's best player, Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver, was supposed to block the DB. He didn't do it. He whiffed badly. Had he chipped him or had he made the block and done his job, that play would have gone for a big play because they had blockers out in front of the intended receiver. But because Smith missed his block and it was a pick six to the house, that turned the game. And Miami won, and Ohio State's out. Instead of Ohio State playing Indiana for the national championship, Ohio State's out, and Miami's playing for the national championship. And again, Cignetti, his players wouldn't do that. They do their jobs. They do it, and they do it consistently. It is amazing. They execute. They always execute. I just don't see these missed assignments by the Indiana players. I'm sure if I looked at every game tape I could find things and see things. I see it from Alabama all the time. Take note, amateurs. The Alabama players do it a lot. They are not a well-oiled machine. They are not coached up nearly as flawlessly and as well as Coach Cignetti coaches his players. It is amazing. Cignetti states you lose a game by turning the ball over, pre-snap penalties, undisciplined penalties. Right? Right. Totally. This has been an eye-opening thing for me, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know what you know and see what you see, you just can't. It was super impressive to watch them play these last two games. I watched every snap, and I just came to the realization he's the best. He's surpassed Kirby. He's taken the mantle from Kirby Smart, who took it from Nick Saban. He is the best coach in college football and probably will be until he retires. Let's see what happens. But it's crazy. These are just some of the examples of why he is the best. Now let's talk about the late bloomer. Who's a late bloomer at 62? How did the late bloomer blossom in Bloomington and become the best coach in college football? He didn't get this Power 4 D1 job at Indiana till he was 62. He was a great coach before that. He just hadn't proven it to the world, hadn't proven it at the highest stage. But he was that coach coming in. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to coach. He had proved it at the D2 level, and then at Elon, and then at James Madison. Now he's proving it to the world. What Clark Lee's done at Vanderbilt is pretty amazing, but he had 3 bad years at Vanderbilt and was really in trouble before he brought in Diego Pavia and elevated Vanderbilt. But what Cignetti is doing is unprecedented, not repeatable, unbelievable what he's doing. We'll never see this type of thing again where a coach goes in and flips a program that's terrible to this level, this fast, and has them on the precipice of winning a national championship. They should beat Miami, should win it. I'm going to watch. It's going to be crazy. Curt Cignetti played the long game and the long journey. It was a long journey for him to get his first head coaching job at 50, and an even longer journey for him to get that job at Indiana at 62. This guy's a lifer. He is a lifer, son of a coach, loves football, been coaching his whole life since he graduated college. This is his career, but it took him a long time to get a head coaching job and an even longer time to get a D1 Power 4 job, and he took it at Indiana, which just wow. His coaching roots are in Alabama. He has deep ties to Alabama, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. We'll talk more about that. But let's talk about how he has deep ties to Bear Bryant, Bobby Bowden, Nick Saban, and then also talk about his father, Frank Cignetti Sr. He learned his lessons from these great coaches. He's a disciple of them. He's learned his lessons, and he's incorporated it into his own philosophy that I call the Cignetti Way. How is Cignetti connected to the Bear Bryant? That's the most kind of biggest leap I've made in all this. But let's talk about it. Cignetti's dad, Frank, worked for Bobby Bowden at West Virginia. Frank succeeded Bowden as a head coach at West Virginia. Curt Cignetti worked for Chuck Amato at NC State from 2000 to 2006 before Curt came and worked for Saban at Alabama. Chuck Amato is a longtime DC for Bowden at FSU in the 90s when FSU was in their heyday. Before becoming the head coach at NC State, Bowden was a Bear disciple, and although he never coached for the Bear, grew up in Birmingham, and while living in Birmingham and coaching in Birmingham, he soaked in the Bear. He was a Bear disciple and took all of the he could from Bear Bryant that he could, soaked it all up and put it into his own coaching style, his own coaching philosophy. And that is how you can link Curt Cignetti to the Bear and link a lot of what he does and the lessons he's learned is from the Bear through the Bowden connection, through the Chuck Amato connection to him, and also through his father from Bear to Bowden to Frank Cignetti Sr. and then to Curt. So you can see how he is a son in a way, and certainly a legacy to the coaching greats of Bear Bryant, Bobby Bowden, and Nick Saban, and his father, Chuck Cignetti, or rather Frank Cignetti Sr. So let's get into that. Bowden's ties to Bear, that ties Cignetti's to Bryant, and we've gone through that. Does this sound familiar? Let's talk about the Bear. Ain't never been nothing but a winner coming out of the Bear's mouth. Cignetti, I win. Google me. Sounds familiar. Bear Bryant, it's not the will to win that matters, but the will to prepare to win. Curt Cignetti, in a more roundabout way, the most important thing to me was our mindset going into the game, that we believed, expected, prepared to make it happen, and could handle the ups and downs of the games without flinching and showing frustration. In other words, prepare to win. That's it. Cignetti's connection to Bowden, and Bowden longtime DC Chuck Amato. Bowden, he who gets the best player usually wins. I'm not too proud to change. Bowden, I like to win too much. I'm not too proud to change. I like to win too much. And then Bowden, the greatest mistake is to continue to practice a mistake. That's Bowdenism. Cignetti's quotes that are similar to Bowden. It's not whether you win. It's not whether you won or lost. It's how much effort you put into correcting mistakes and moving forward. You better get better, or you better get better, or you get worse. You never stay the same. Look, we have some egregious mistakes on the back end, particularly at safety. We have about 5 of them in that game. We only got exposed on one of them. If we don't clean those up, we're going to get fractured, and you can't put that stuff on tape. Bobby Bowden, he who gets the best players usually win. Cignetti, we look for production over potential. When I see 3 years of consistent production, the guy played 12 games there. He doesn't miss games, produces every year. I know he's got something that allows it to happen. Toughness first, availability matters. The biggest question isn't how talented you are. It's what drives you, your habits, your discipline, why not? And then finally, it's all about the people, the coaches you hire, the players you recruit. In other words, he who gets the best players win. Cignetti says it in other more subtle, roundabout ways. But again, Bowdenisms, more on the type of players he likes. You have to be light on your feet, flexible, adjust, improvise, thrive, or you're not going to survive. Cignetti focuses on attributes that translate to the field, such as ankle, knee, hip, flexibility at all positions, because it's a start-stop game, a granular detail he looks for on the film. A good process produces good results. What we do today makes a difference. Mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people, and you can't win together if you don't work together. All those things that Curt Cignetti says that you can see coming through from Bowden, and this is part of the Cignetti way. There are 2 pains in life. There's the pain of discipline and the pain of disappointment. If you can't handle the pain of discipline, then you'll never have to deal with the pain of disappointment. Very much right out of Sabanisms on those. So now let's talk about the Cignetti quotes that I think fall right in line with just who he is. First, you form your habits, then your habits form you. We believe that with proper preparation, the commitment, discipline, there's that no self-imposed limitation of what we can accomplish day in and day out, playing in and play out. And then average is the enemy. And to be great, you got to have special focus, special commitment, special preparation, discipline, and the ability to say no to some things. All right, let's jump into the Bear coaching philosophy, and you can see this fits Cignetti. Bear Bryant's coaching philosophy centered on hard work, discipline, sacrifice, and building unity through total commitment, emphasizing that winning required players to give their all and learn from mistakes and put the team first. Bear's coaching philosophy followed the principles that foster a culture of respect, fairness, and leading by example with integrity, intelligent, data-driven decisions. Bear believed in demanding excellence and knowing when to push and when to support and when that leadership meant taking responsibility. Core tenets for the Bear: hard work and sacrifice, discipline and unity, fairness and respect, leadership by example, responsibility. That's all up Cignetti. You can see how Cignetti's just pulled all of that into what I call the Cignetti Way, his coaching philosophy, the way he runs his program. And then Bear's attitude on coaching. Coaching is a way of life, not just a job. Requires a clear system and players willing to sacrifice for a common goal. Cignetti's a lifer. He's a coach at heart. That is his be all, end all in terms of career. He loves it. It is his way of life, and he is all over doing that work. And then intelligent work hard, but intelligently, avoid wasting time focusing on productive. More Bearisms: listen and learn, focus on the little things, and then you have to mold men into becoming responsible citizens and leaders and extending guidance beyond the game. That's Bryant's philosophy. You can see how it's all up in what Cignetti does. Let's talk about the Bowden ties. Bowden's keys were character and integrity, player development and mentorship, and adversity as a teacher. Again, his dad, ties to Bowden, directly coached under him. He coached under Chuck Amato. He absorbed all those Bowdenisms and incorporated into it. I think he's more Saban and Bear than he is just pure Bowden, but all that rubbed off on him. And I think that's there. And then Bowden said, first you lose big, then you lose close. Then you win close, and finally you win big. The mindset emphasized patience, hard work, and gradual, consistent improvement. That sounds like Cignetti. But man, he was able to jump into Indiana, and he didn't have to lose big, and he didn't have to lose close. He came in and he won close and he won big, and look at where we are. But guess what? When he went to Indiana University, Pennsylvania, by the way, that's in Indiana, Pennsylvania, which is the Christmas tree capital of the world, small town, university town. And he went there and rebuilt the program, and he built it into a winner. So he did have to go through those pains there. Then he went to Elon, and he had to do the same thing there. Then he went to James Madison and did that before going to Indiana. So he had to live that. He had to show that he could do that. He had to build programs and build them into winners, one step at a time, one stone at a time. He just was able to short circuit that at Indiana, which is just amazing. And then Bowden had adaptability and innovation. He was a CEO style head coach. That Cignetti, I don't think he's a delegator. I think he is a lot more hands-on. I certainly know he has to delegate some of what he does, but I think he is very hands-on in every aspect of the program. So probably not as hands-off as Bobby Bowden was, particularly in his later years. But certainly he knows he has to delegate, and he can't do it all himself. There's just way too much to do. And then recruiting and culture. Bowden was all about recruiting. He wanted his players to be better than their players. Now, how they go about recruiting, and Cignetti is a recruiting expert. He was the recruiting coordinator for Saban, and we'll talk more about that later. But he knows how to recruit, identify players, identify talent, bring them in, coach them up, and develop them and get them to their max potential. He is a genius at doing that. Now let's go to Nick Saban. He is definitely a Sabanite. He's not a clone, but he learned his lessons well from Nick Saban, and he's used those and incorporated those into the Cignetti Way. And Cignetti's core principles focus on process, not the prize. Prioritize diligent execution of daily tasks, fundamentals over worrying about the final win, believing good outcomes naturally follow good processes, high standards and discipline, demand excellence, self-discipline, do what's necessary, do the difficult stuff to avoid disappointment. Man, this is just Cignetti. This is all ingrained in what Cignetti is. Ownership, mental toughness, continuous improvement and adaptation, recruiting, leadership, empower experts, and eliminate clutter. You can see how that's all in what Cignetti does. He is on it. Here's some key Sabanisms, and you can see these Sabanisms part of Cignetti. You can't win without leadership. The pain of discipline is better than the pain of disappointment. Success isn't a continuum. It requires constant work. Curt is a chip off the old block. And what I mean by that, and we're transitioning. We're not talking about Saban anymore. He's a chip off the old block from his dad, Frank. Frank Cignetti, senior Hall of Fame coach, coached at Indiana University, Pennsylvania. That's how Curt ended up there. His dad was there, legendary Hall of Fame coach, coached very successfully. And Curt learned a lot and learned tons. And he's a chip off the old block. But again, he has made this thing his own, taking all this stuff he's learned and making his own process. Here's the Frank Cignetti senior coaching philosophy. Fundamentals. He stressed the importance of fundamentals. Basic movements, such as ankle flexion, hip bending, is essential for success on the field. Preparation and discipline and accountability. I mean, that's all core Curt that he got from his father. Character and teamwork. Again, it's we, not I. And then in recruiting, consistency and resiliency on the field. Those were key to being successful. And then the winning mindset. Again, senior to his son, Curt. And here are the Cignetti Way. These are the core Curt Cignetti sayings. Fast, physical, relentless, smart, disciplined, poise. Every play's got a life of its own and history of its own, and production over potential. These are the key insights from the Cignetti philosophy that his dad handed down to son. Production over potential. Cignetti focuses on players who demonstrate on-field production, work ethic, availability, sense of discipline, and commitment. He prioritizes that over just upside and potential. His confidence. I win, Google me. He is confident. He came into Indiana with tremendous self-belief. He had done it at 3 places in Elon, Indiana University, Pennsylvania, and James Madison. He had won and won big, and he knew he could win. And that confidence, bordering arrogance, he went for it, and he's proven it. And then standards matter more. It's standards, not talent. And he believes in a strong cultural and consistent daily habits are more crucial than natural ability. Natural ability really means talent, and talent can be underutilized, not developed, and it's a waste when it's not. Evaluation is the key for Cignetti. Cignetti was a recruiting coordinator for Alabama from 2007 to 2010 as Saban rebuilt the Saban dynasty. He was there from the beginning when Saban came in the door. He was the one out there evaluating all the players. Man, he says he got a PhD when he worked under Saban, and he learned his lessons and learned them well. And look what he's doing now as he was there. And he said he does not always go after the big shiny guys. He's looking to find the best players he can find. He'll find the diamond in the rough. Yeah, he's going to take that great player, but not just on talent. They've got to have all those other factors, coachability, development, production, all those things, or he's not going to invest his time in them. He was Saban's recruiting coordinator on D1, and man, he saw it firsthand. All right, that is it for part 1 of this podcast. Just talking about Cignetti's philosophy, all the people who influenced him and helped him grow, and then how he became the coach he is. Part 2 of the podcast that we'll do later, we're going to go through his career, just starting off at position coaches to going and working for Chuck Amato at NC State, and working with Phillip Rivers and with Russell Wilson, to going to the Saban staff, to then going out on his own as a head coach and developing into the Curt Cignetti we're seeing now emerging on the stage, who is the best coach in college football. Again, I agree with Joel Klatt, David Pollack. I'm sorry. He is the best coach. He's overtaken it, and we'll see where it goes from here. Anyway, that's it. We'll have the other one come out soon. Never seen anything like this before. It's amazing. Stay tuned. It's almost unbelievable. I'll be watching, and I'll put out part 2 on Cignetti. God bless, and roll Tide.